Hello, I'm Grant Beck, President and CEO of Graham. Welcome to your Health, Safety, and Environment Orientation. At Graham, we place the health and safety of our people and business partners above all else. And when I speak of business partners, I mean not only our clients and designers, but also our subcontractors. Protecting our communities and the environment in which we live and work is a top priority. The information you'll review in this video and in your training session is important. It's important for you, for your family and friends, and for your colleagues on the worksite because it'll help keep everyone safe. We need you to participate actively in our health, safety, and environment protection programs. It's actually a condition of your employment. The senior management team of Graham, myself included, personally place a lot of value in ensuring the health and safety of every person who comes onto a Graham site. But I want to emphasize that at Graham, we're all responsible for making sure everyone goes home safely at the end of the day, and that means you. I expect everyone to uphold our company's deep commitment to safety. It's our highest value, and our goal is an incident-free workplace. All Graham personnel, management, as well as workers, have specific responsibilities and accountabilities at our job sites. The Graham management team, myself included, will engage with you as part of the workforce. We will listen, we expect to be held accountable, and that will include spending time in the field engaging directly with our people working on job sites. As you start work at Graham, you'll find that you have strong support in achieving what we expect of you. We have highly capable and experienced managers, modern technology and systems, great equipment, much of it company owned and maintained, and decades of experience. We're good at what we do, including keeping our people safe. Through your actions and support, and the actions of everyone else on your site, we can all be part of leading the construction industry in this critical value. You play an important role in helping to ensure that every day, everyone goes home safely.
General. Graham has been providing construction solutions since 1926. Part of what makes us successful is our unwavering commitment to health, safety, and the environment. Graham uses industry best practices, plus the insights gained from its decades of experience. Graham implements stringent safety requirements on every job site. Contractors must have a safety management system in place that meets or exceeds Graham's Health, Safety, and Environment Management System, HSEMS. If they don't, contractors must comply with the Graham Management System, as well as the acts, codes, regulations, and other relevant legislation or legal obligations applicable to your province, state, or place of operation to ensure compliance. Graham is committed to safeguarding the environment. Graham strives to use the highest level of waste management. By utilizing the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle, Graham encourages all workers to look for ways to minimize waste and, where feasible, to replace the use of hazardous materials or products with less hazardous ones. One of the ways Graham provides a safe worksite is through preventative and protective measures known as PPMs. PPMs can include standards, safe operating practices, guidelines, industry best practices, and job hazard assessments. Some commonly used protective and preventative measures are confined space entry, fall protection, hazardous energy control, elevated work platforms, personal protective equipment, and ground disturbance. In the HSE Handbook, you will find an overview of these PPMs as well as other important information. A complete copy of the PPMs can be found in our HSEMS and is available on site.
HSE at Graham is paramount. It is supported by our core values and directly contributes to our viability as a business. The safety of our personnel, as well as our subcontractors, suppliers, and the general public, at and around our projects is my highest priority. I expect others to support this shared accountability.
Standards. Fall protection. Before any work at heights can begin, a fall protection plan must be completed. The plan will include fall hazards, type of fall protection system, any anchors being used, a completed clearance calculation, procedures for assembling, inspecting, using, maintaining, and disassembling the fall protection equipment, and rescue procedures. For working in elevated areas, Graham requires the use of primary fall prevention systems as the first control wherever possible. A primary fall prevention system provides walking and working surfaces that are free from floor and/or wall openings. It is also equipped with guardrails on all open sides. Secondary fall protection systems equipment, such as harnesses and horizontal or vertical lifelines, should only be used after all efforts to employ primary fall prevention systems have been exhausted, or when being used in concert with primary systems. Workers exposed to a fall hazard must review and follow the fall protection standard and the site-specific fall protection plan, as local regulations and client requirements for working at heights may vary. Confined space. Certain areas on the worksite may be defined as confined spaces. These are any areas with limited openings for entry or exit that could make escape difficult in the event of an emergency, have a little or poor ventilation, known or potential hazards, and is not intended or designated for continuous human occupancy. Although confined spaces are considered more hazardous than regular workspaces, effectively controlling the risks provides a safe work environment. All confined spaces are unique. Work in confined spaces will be done in accordance with jurisdictional requirements, in compliance to the Confined Space Standard and any associated safe operating practices or SOPs. Workers must be aware of the hazards associated with the confined space, will follow the instructions on the permit, and will use the appropriate equipment. Elevated work platforms. Elevated work platforms provide temporary access to work at heights. Using the Elevated Work Platform Standard and associated SOPs will ensure that the work performed minimizes risk to people, equipment, production, and the environment. Ground disturbance. The ground is disturbed if any work operation or activity on or under the existing surface moves, removes, or otherwise changes the soil at the worksite. All work that disturbs or displaces the soil must be performed in accordance with the Ground Disturbance Standard and Permit, which will provide specific clarification for the approved methods when disrupting the soil at different depths. Reference of the Confined Space Standard and associated SOPs may also be necessary, as trenches may be classified as a confined space. Soil disturbance is often associated with exposure of existing underground objects or facilities. These can include pipelines, electrical lines, natural gas lines, cables, wires, sewers, and communications infrastructure. This process involves excavating equipment, hydrovacking, or hand digging to expose the identified facility and to prevent damage. Making contact with any of these facilities may cause severe injury, utility blackouts, property damage, or environmental damage. Hazardous energy control. Hazardous energy control is a process of identification, communication, isolation, control, and rendering an operational system or equipment free from all forms of energy to a zero energy state. This procedure may also be known as lockout-tagout. Stored energy can take a number of different forms, such as electrical energy or mechanical energy. Hazardous energy control is required when equipment must be made free of energy. Work activities may involve energized operating systems or equipment that could unexpectedly start up or release stored energy. Release of stored energy may cause severe injury, equipment or property damage, or environmental damage. Site management and supervision will continually evaluate training, competency, and experience prior to assigning tasks related to hazardous energy control. Before starting any task, a field-level risk assessment, FLRA, needs to be completed, and the appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, must be used. Personal protective equipment, PPE. Personal protective equipment, PPE, is considered to be the last line of defense. It is critical that everyone wears personal protective equipment that's clean, in good condition, inspected prior to use, and maintained per the manufacturer's requirements. The minimum PPE requirements at Graham are long trousers, shirt complete with minimum 4-inch sleeves, hard hat, CSA or ANSI approved, safety glasses, CSA or ANSI approved, safety boots with minimum 6-inch ankle length support, CSA or ANSI approved, and work gloves, task specific. Specialty PPE may be required, such as hearing protection, thermal protection, high visibility clothing, arc flash rating, fall protection, or self-contained breathing apparatus, depending on the work or project to be completed. Alcohol and drug policy and standard. As Graham is committed to protecting the health and safety of their employees, the use of illicit drugs, inappropriate use of alcohol, misuse of medications and other substances can have serious adverse effects on employee health, safety, job performance, client operations, and the community. Graham personnel, strategic labor providers, contractors, and subcontractors shall not permit any person to work or remain on Graham projects or premises if there are reasonable grounds to believe the person has consumed alcohol or illegal drugs, or has used any prescription or over-the-counter medication that may impair the person's ability to carry out their work safely. This standard was written using the guidance provided within the Canadian Model for Providing a Safe Workplace and the United States Department of Labor Drug-Free Workplace Alliance. Graham has developed HSE Absolutes to hold Graham employees, strategic labor providers, contractors, and others working on our sites accountable by communicating, implementing, and enforcing rules for how work is to be completed on Graham worksites and ensure corrective action is taken when required. These absolutes include, but are not limited to, violation of the alcohol and drug policy and/or standard, theft, vandalism, smoking in non-designated areas, including offices and camps, acts of reckless endangerment, such as operating equipment or vehicles in a dangerous manner, deliberate or willful failure to follow Graham's HSE management system or project-specific safety plan, including preventative and protective measures inclusive of fall protection plan, confined space, hazardous energy control plan, etc., tampering with safety devices, emergency response vehicles, or equipment, operating equipment or vehicles without the proper license, authority, or qualifications, willful damage or destruction to offices, trailers, environment, and/or equipment, sabotage, blatant disregard for property marked zones for imminent danger, such as red flagged areas or radiation areas, falsification of reports, statements, or records, working without an operations or construction specific permit, for example, hot work, confined space, and ground disturbance, fighting, horseplay, practical jokes, disorderly conduct, and interference with other personnel performing their duties, harassment, acts of aggression, abusive, or threatening language towards anyone will not be tolerated. Sleeping while on duty, or sleeping on the job, refers to falling asleep while on shift or the equivalent, or else while responsible to be performing some active or passive job duty. Projects and/or business units may add to these HSE absolutes to support project requirements. These must be clearly communicated and documented at the time of orientation. The Graham HSE absolutes must be followed at all times. Failure to comply will result in corrective action and may include being removed from any Graham worksite. A complete list of the HSE absolutes can also be found in the Graham HSE Handbook. Communications. Graham believes in clear, two-way communication with workers and contractors. It is a critical tool for ensuring that everyone understands their roles and responsibilities, as well as any potential hazards and associated mitigation plans. Graham uses multiple methods of communications to ensure necessary information is properly communicated. HSE posting boards will display important notices such as meetings, including tailgate, daily closeout, weekly HSE, and joint health and safety, lessons learned, alerts, inspections, orientations, and emergency response plans.
I expect all Graham employees and business partners to think safety and work safely during their workday. I also encourage everyone to think and practice safety in their personal lives. When we put safety first, 24 hours a day, we will prevent many injuries and incidents.
Reporting unsafe acts and conditions and incident reporting. At Graham, our HSE management system and associated preventative and protective measures are implemented to prevent unsafe acts and conditions on Graham sites. In the event an unsafe act or condition is observed, it must be corrected and/or reported to the supervisor immediately. Some unsafe acts or conditions to be aware of are poor housekeeping, careless operation of equipment, including speeding, working overtired or impaired, exposure to overhead dangers, distracting, teasing, abusing, quarreling, fighting that is incited by other workers, harassment, horseplay, and bullying, inappropriate PPE usage, failure to show the appropriate standard, SOP, or guideline for tasks, occupational injuries, exposure, equipment damage, property damage, security, and fire. Reported unsafe acts, conditions, and incidents will be investigated, corrected, and documented to not only show trending and continuous improvement, but to prevent similar incidents from occurring. Every person on a Graham project is responsible to report an incident, no matter how minor it appears to be, including near misses. Right to refuse unsafe work. Workers and contractors have the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse unsafe work that could create a health and safety hazard to themselves or others on the worksite. Workers and contractors should not attempt any task if it is believed there is the potential to cause harm. If the worker exercises their right to refuse unsafe work, it will be investigated and corrective actions put in place prior to any worker being reassigned the task. Workers who initiate a refusal will be offered a reassignment of tasks with no punitive measures. Detailed process can be found in the HSEMS. Project-Specific Safety Plan, PSSP, and risk assessments. Graham uses the hierarchy of control as part of the risk assessment and mitigation process to ensure that the most effective control is utilized. It outlines the most effective control method at the top and the least effective control at the bottom. Elimination, substitution, engineering, administration, personal protective equipment. Group Risk Assessment, GRA. Graham project teams complete a group risk assessment, a GRA, to identify hazards and mitigate risks for each project. At the beginning of each project, the project management team assesses the scopes of work for each specific project to identify hazards and associated risks with the scope of work, putting controls in place to mitigate the risks. This information is then used to create the Project-Specific Safety Plan, or PSSP, prior to any work beginning on site. Project-Specific Safety Plan, PSSP. A Project-Specific Safety Plan, PSSP, consists of documenting the hazards, risks, and mitigating controls for a specific project. It is developed based on the group risk assessment site-specific findings, controls, and includes any client-specific rules or safety requirements, as well as relevant supporting documentation from the HSEMS. Workers will be informed of these changes as the work progresses, and updates or amendments to the PSSP are made. Field Level Risk Assessment, FLRA. Field Level Risk Assessments, or FLRAs, must be completed prior to beginning a task by the personnel conducting the task. They can be completed as an individual or as part of a group. The FLRA is a critical frontline tool for Graham and its workers. In order for hazards associated with tasks to be identified and controlled, each FLRA must be completed in the field where the task is to take place. FLRAs are a living document, and as such, they have to be updated when conditions change, weather, scope of work, new equipment, location, or task change, etc., as well as reviewed and signed off by supervision during normal field tours. Corrective mentoring actions must also be documented on the FLRA. Field-level risk assessments are meant to be completed and be used with project-specific standards, safe operating practices, SOPs, job hazard assessments, JHAs, and other related preventative and protective measures. Emergency Response Plan. Each project will have a specific emergency response plan. It will contain information critical to every worker, including emergency callouts, muster points, evacuation procedures, and local medical providers. Be sure to familiarize yourself with your site's emergency response plan. Inspections. One of the ways that Graham ensures that its sites are being operated safely is through the use of inspections. Inspections will be conducted by a team comprised of both workers and supervision. They are aimed at identify existing and potential hazards, mitigate identified hazards, and recommend and follow up on corrective actions. Incident investigation. The purpose of an incident investigation is to investigate the facts, the influencing factors, to determine and understand the root causes. These factors allow corrective actions to be developed to prevent recurrence. All incidents will be investigated. Workers are expected to participate in investigations if required. Important factors of an investigation include freezing the scene, collecting witness statements, fact-finding, not fault-finding, and communicating the findings for continuous improvement and prevention of similar incidents. Behavior-based safety observations. Behavior-based safety, or BBS, is a positive approach to support the achievement of Graham's goal of an incident-free workplace. The BBS observation process supports safe behaviors and eliminates at-risk behaviors. BBS observations are carried out by individuals or paired with a leader. To prepare for a BBS observation, the person will have completed a project-specific orientation and have awareness of any area or task-specific hazards, performed an FLRA, and be wearing the appropriate PPE. To conduct a BBS observation, introduce the observer to the workers to notify that a BBS observation will take place. Worker FLRA and applicable permits are reviewed. Observe activities long enough to effectively observe the task. Safe and unsafe behaviors, improvement areas, continuous improvement opportunities, etc. are noted. Provide feedback such as commendations, coaching, etc. to the workers being observed. Observations are documented for continuous improvement. If an unsafe behavior or condition is observed, immediate intervention should occur and be documented through the intervention process. This is an immediate positive engagement to address unsafe acts or conditions. New worker. Graham's New Worker Mentoring Program ensures new and less experienced workers are provided peer training and leadership. For easy identification, all new workers wear either a green hard hat or a green sticker on their hard hat. When site supervision is confident that the competencies are met, the new worker is graduated out of the program. Working alone. When assistance is not readily available in the event of an injury, illness, or emergency, working alone protocols will be put in place to minimize the risk to workers. Mitigation controls will be implemented through the organization of work schedules and procedures to eliminate the need for workers to work by themselves. However, if this is not possible, site supervision will take appropriate measures, including the working alone plan to identify and minimize the risks. No one will be permitted to work alone without sufficient processes established by supervision and/or management. GHS and TDG. Global Harmonization System, or GHS, is the next generation of WHMIS. GHS is a comprehensive program with an international mandate that communicates the hazards of chemicals. The symbols have been updated. Knowledge of updated symbols, labels, and the Safety Data Sheet, or SDS, formerly known as MSDS, is required to ensure proper and safe handling of controlled products. The transportation of dangerous goods, or TDG, involves manifests as well as placards placed on containers and vehicles containing dangerous goods that provide information about what is being transported in the event of an incident or emergency. Goods are classified based on how dangerous or benign they are when exposure occurs. Prior to transporting any dangerous goods, proper certification is required. Distracted driving and electronic devices. Graham is committed to providing a safe, healthy work environment to employees, contractors, and the public by not allowing the use of cell phones or other electronic devices while operating vehicles or equipment. This allows the operator to remain focused. Hands-free devices may be used, but only if safe to do so. Roles and responsibilities. All Graham personnel, including management and workers, have specific responsibilities and accountabilities on Graham sites. Every person is required to know what they are responsible and accountable for. All workers have a shared responsibility and are encouraged to take action that drives positive changes and continuous improvement.
As a career Graham employee, I value the health and welfare of all those who participate in and are affected by our construction projects. Graham's values and culture govern our behaviour. Continued adherence to our safety principles and practices will enable us to achieve the excellence in performance we strive for every day.
Thank you for participating in our HSE orientation and for your active cooperation in ensuring a safe work environment for everyone on site.